In the morning, you are thinking it's going to be amazing. We are just going to conquer the world. In the afternoon, you are saying, okay, this is just why did we like this is not gonna work.
I have at least 5 different customers who I started building a relationship even before Ujji was out in the market.
Sales is not everyone's forte. I know some people actually dread it. But for successful growth, you need to make sure that you master certain skills, and selling is one of them. Hello and welcome to this episode of Sales Therapy. I'm not your typical host, Alper, ex-salesperson turned co-founder, and this is your show, Sales Therapy, where we discuss past challenges in terms of selling and growth of today's leaders, how they learned from their experiences so they could continue their careers and flourish, and hopefully always end on a good note with a hint of vulnerability. Well, welcome to the show. In this episode, I'm super happy to be joined by 2 fellow founder hustlers who are both founders and sales leaders in their own right. I'm joined by Serkan, who is the founder of Native, and he's a serial entrepreneur, actually. This is not his first rodeo. And Rafael is the founder of Ujji. We're all located in London. We all know ourselves quite well, so I'm looking forward to this conversation because it will be quite colloquial, but we'll be sharing some juicy facts about being a founder and a sales leader at the same time and juggling many other things, among which can be fundraising, being a part-time dad or full-time dad and a part-time something else. But welcome to the show, guys. I'm super happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is the first time I'm doing that. I'm hosting 2 people on a show, so it's going to be learning. Like, maybe I should yield the floor to each other. Okay, good. So, Serkan, welcome. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you so much for having us. Yes, of course, this is Serkan. I am the founder of Native. It's a gamified audience engagement platform for communities and businesses so that they can get people to do things that delivered results. And it's a pre-seed startup. We are based in London. And yeah, that's the beginning of our story.
Excellent. Rafa?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Alper. Rafael here, originally from Brazil, have been in the UK now for 6 years. And I'm the founder of Ujji, essentially the AI-powered learning as a service platform, helping fast-paced work environments to transform their documents in their own internal processes into gamified training experiences for their people.
Excellent. And full disclosure here, both myself and Flola, we kind of engage with your products as well. So that has to be a transparent disclosure in advance, because I enjoy not only talking to you as founders, but also I enjoy using your products, learning about your products more and more, and glad to be on this journey together with you. Anything you want to share before we start?
Yes.
Take it away.
Well done. Well done for being the product of month on Product Hunt, of course.
Okay.
Very
no,
well
it was like
reminded.
Question. Thank you.
It's quite recent, right?
Yeah. We just
tell
got
us more about it. Tell us more about it.
Yeah. No, I mean, we did as a first-time founder, it was my first time launching on Product Hunt. It was like a 24-hour effort. We're going to definitely share our learnings on it. But we got product of the day, then we got product of the week, and finally, as of today, which is the 1st of December, when we're recording, we are product of the month. So I'm super proud of our community, everyone supporting us and showing us love. I think it's a great feeling. It's definitely a milestone for a founder. So I wish everyone this joy.
#FlowLove. I love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. All right. So let's dive in. Because this is therapy, I always like to start a little bit with like childhood or like growing up, because every therapy starts with that, I guess. So who wants to go first? And don't be shy. Jump in. Like maybe I'll yield the floor this time to Rafa. Rafa, where did you grow up, and how was growing up for you? And particularly, I'm interested in how the way people are brought up shapes their careers, shapes the way they approach work. So tell us about that a little.
That's a very interesting way to start. But essentially, well, I mentioned I come from Brazil originally. So I'm very thankful for having had an awesome childhood, very close to my mom, dad, brother. My father unfortunately passed away 6 years ago, just before I moved to the UK. But essentially, I think he in particular had a very important role to play in the way I've shaped my career, essentially. I believe that in everything I used to do when I was a kid, I wanted to actually make him proud. I wanted to honor him, simply because I just looked up to him so much, like he was this hustler, just like we are, like he was always doing his thing, uh, like always achieving higher flights, and anything I did actually just felt always so tiny compared to anything he did. But I was just there trying to do my thing and trying to make him proud. And I continued to do that. Essentially, uh, when I started my career, it's always been about achieving milestones to actually show him. Now he's not around anymore, for me to be able to actually bounce things off him, but he's always been my mentor, and I still can hear his voice inside me. So it just keeps on making me power through. And at the end of the day, I think that's shaped a lot my early childhood and how I actually perceive my career today, and how I just go about and doing things with always a lot of passion, always bringing a lot of emotion into everything I do, even
Yeah.
from the smallest of things, putting that into whatever sort of like founder-led sales email, from a cold
Yeah.
outreach all the way through to building long-term relationships like these that we have been building in the past year or so, in which we
Yeah.
just really
You're
support each
absolutely
other as founders and so forth.
You absolutely are one of the biggest hustlers that I know. Although I have preached all my sales career, follow up is very important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times cannot be enough as long as you do it in the right way. But sometimes the way you follow up with us, and I know that you do with your other clients too, it's always so cute and nice. But at the same time, your persistence and perseverance, it really shows that you're a hustler. And there's definitely things I can learn from you. Although at the supposedly at the height of my sales career. And how about you, Serkan? What was growing up for you like, and how do you think that shaped business life for you?
So yeah, I was born in Turkey, and I was actually born in a small city in Turkey, in southern Turkey. And I remember my childhood. So I had a happy childhood, but I distinctly remember that at school, especially, I was always trying to change things because I was always, if there is some status quo, I'm like, okay, can't we just do it this way because it's going to be better, it's going to be fun, it's going to be more beautiful. So that hasn't changed. I still do the same thing, and I think that I carried that through my life, into my career before I started to work as a self-employed consultant and then becoming a founder. And there was always a pressure on us to get, good grades, go to some,
Yeah.
certain schools. As I remember, my family would just say, if you don't go to one of these three universities, it really doesn't count much. So that was a huge pressure. I went into one of those universities. I can't say I really enjoyed it. I hated it, to be honest. But every experience that I have had, of course, during the course of my career, helped with everything that I do now. So I always wanted to. I think my childhood made also be me a little bit of people pleaser as well, which kind of helps with my relationship building skills at the same time, especially when we talk about sales at the top of the funnel. It really helps, to be honest. You just need to find the balance as you move forward and how you develop the relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things you both say resonate a lot. The funny thing is, maybe a little off topic, but now because I'm working, so I'm a millennial, and I know you guys are too. But I work a lot with the Gen Z, and some of our maybe like new recruits at Flow, etc. as well. And it's been a while, to be honest. Like I think in my previous roles, I wasn't necessarily working a lot with Gen Z because there were some other levels and stuff. But the way we approach work and sometimes how we see it as like a make or break thing, or how our personality really shows at work and how we associate success with our own selves, etc. I think there's a bit of a generational thing. This is going to sound a little controversial, but I think Gen Z sometimes maybe better than us, have other values that they cherish more, and sometimes don't think of work the way we do. Like, it's a make or break thing, or they maybe they have a healthier relationship. Anyway, that's a topic for another time. The first question I want to ask you both is actually, obviously in your jobs, you both have to sell. So how were you always like good salespeople, or were you always sympathetic to the world of sales? Because I know a lot of people dread it. A lot of founders don't really like it. They want to outsource it as soon as possible. So what was your relationships with selling? Maybe start with you again, Rafa.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting one, actually, because I come from the world of business and brand strategy. So I basically led corporate strategy for some of the biggest businesses and brands that we know out there. Anything from like Reckitt Benckiser, Mars, Diageo, Avon, all of these awesome big house of brands. And essentially, throughout my life, I was always selling, but I was selling ideas, if you know what I mean. I was selling actual either brand campaigns or specific product developments internally that would actually deliver against a specific problem or opportunity that we had identified. So building pitch decks, for example, is not something that is solely within the world of a founder, if you know what I mean. Like we are always building pitch decks also in the world of corporates, to a point in which this actually took me to develop 2 corporate ventures in the past. So back in Brazil, I developed the equivalent to the Brazilian Headspace, called Atma. It grew to over 5 million active users. When I was working for Mars Pet Care in the US, I basically developed the world's first AI-based dog tracker to help lost dogs find their way back home. Story for another day, but essentially it used AI photography to distinguish one dog's nose from another, because they're just as unique as our fingerprints, to help lost dogs that end up not finding a way back home to actually truly come back to their owners. So essentially, to sell these ideas internally, I actually had to always find a way to inject a lot of emotion into the impact that this could have on the businesses that I would work with. But when I actually came into the world of being a VC-backed founder, I actually had to also learn how to sell software. So B2B sales, wow, okay, where do I start? Essentially, I had no idea whatsoever what I had to do. So thankfully, there's like loads of awesome businesses out there that are really driving thought leadership in this space. My favorite being the Flola content. Essentially, I have to say that has added a lot of value to my day-to-day as a founder, selling the business day in, day out, being that for our customers at the end of the day, but also for investors, also for our team internally in terms of a mission, a vision for the business. But when we're talking about B2B sales in particular, I've never been a salesperson, like in that shape or form. So I just really had to learn the ins and outs of it, learning how to effectively and efficiently do cold outreach, how to effectively and efficiently use social media messaging such as LinkedIn to build founder relationships, or even relationships with decision makers in the businesses of the ICPs that I tap into. And so forth.
That's something that Serkan and we also brainstorm on that quite often. And how he explains his journey of kind of getting more warm or used to selling is quite interesting, I think. And I hear that from a lot of founders. Do you want to share on that a little bit, Serkan?
Yeah, of course. So sales is not something that people are comfortable with, and including myself, including many other people, because it includes rejection. So you're just putting yourself in a position that thousands of people are going to reject you and say no. And no one likes that, right? So I think for me personally, the most important thing was to actually discover myself as a person and how I built these relationships, because throughout my career, whenever, starting from university, what I have done wasn't sales, but it was sales apparently, because everything was like inbound. Whenever I talk about something, unless an idea or a project or native, for instance, native is still in build. So I'm not necessarily directly selling it or monetizing it at the moment. What I'm doing is just I'm talking about it. But what I talk about is very attractive to whoever I talk to, and then it becomes a sales conversation quite organically because that turns into an inbound. And the reason behind that is because I don't try to sell, or I don't start the conversation or the relationship with an objective to sell. What I'm doing is really inviting those people to know about native and then introduce the concept and get their feedback, which makes them feel that they are part of the journey. They take the ownership of that decision. It's not just their decision, but also there is a new concept on the table, at the table, and I give them a voice to actually shape that concept or that vision, which makes them for more exciting. So that's how I have actually built my own way of selling, let's say. I still don't like to call it sales because it is, it is different, but I'm a relationship person. So whenever I try to sell, as in, I've got this, would you like to buy it? I can't do it.
Yeah.
Whenever I try to build that relationship, then it turns into an organic and inbound sales conversation, and partnership conversation opens up so many different channels.
Yeah.
So that has become my journey, and it is less scary than directly trying to sell something. I think other founders, especially the first-time founders, should do this as well.
That trend is really going to be quite so. Of course, the more experienced salespeople or people who are interested in reading about these things will know the predictable revenue model and how it was all about always be closing, and you just have to sell and let's build sales machines and process and etc. And these are really hard times where nobody's looking forward to buying something unless they desperately need it. Everybody's very conservative about where they're going to spend the money. So I think that hard sell mode is definitely something of the past. And as we're preparing an almanac for 2023 from the world of sales, one trend that definitely emerges is more human-led sales and, help before you sell, and those things that we're quite accustomed to from being more consultative selling or, being more relationship builders. Something that I'm quite interested, I'll continue very quickly with you, Serkan, though, like your previous business, which is still running, Pitch.space. That is all about pitching. And, Rafael already mentioned that although a lot of people don't realize they're selling, like I used to be a consultant, it was all about building decks. You're doing a lot of convincing and influencing, and at the end of the day, you're just selling your idea, or you're trying to build consensus or, alignment. Have there been interesting cases where you helped other founders or other people with Pitch.space, where you were trying to improve the way they pitch or the way they sell? Like, were there curious stories?
Yeah, there have been many different case studies, to be honest. Some of them are really, exciting and positive, and some of them you just try to say you shouldn't really pitch at this point, and actually probably you need to reconsider the business model before you go to the market. The thing about sales and any relationship is all about storytelling. I know it's a buzzword or if it's cliche, but it's really about storytelling. And when you tell your story, it's not just you tell it, it's you need to make them part of that story. It needs to be immersive, otherwise you just alienate them. So they need to buy into the vision, they need to buy into the hero of that story, which you are the hero of that story. So you need to build that storyline, whether it is pitching an investment opportunity or a sales opportunity, or for just maybe an idea, like for instance in Rafael's case in his corporate life. It is all about convincing those people and exciting them, actually, depending on your stage, of course.
Yeah.
So there have been cases. Sometimes people are so much focused on the technicalities, like too much focus on numbers and technical stuff, and there's too much focus on product, whereas they are more in the audience is more interested in how this story actually started, who is building this, and why. What's the exciting thing about it? So those are the things that people generally miss, and we fix it for them, and we help them also, create and craft their stories as well for investment.
Yeah, I think that's why I love psychology, and that's why the show is sales therapy, because there's like empathy, that's them before you, there is like shut up and listen. There's all that, and those are skills you build over time. So, I'm hoping that people who are like earlier in their careers to listen and learn from leaders like yourselves, like how you build those skills over the time, and sometimes share a bit of vulnerability around it. Rafa, I want to shift gears and maybe talk about like the current world of selling at the moment. You and I are, of course, early stage founders, but it's not our first rodeo. But it's still difficult to sell, to close deals, to deal with clients, especially in the world of B2B and in, it's not the days of to the moon and rockets anymore, right? So what is your overall perception of the market right now, and what are some of your current challenges?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Because I think it's no new news that we're going through bearish times, right? And it's super cyclical, right? Like these things happen in the economy, and you just have to face it at the end of the day. So I just do not think that this is an excuse for us to basically get across the reason as to why we're not achieving our KPIs, our milestones, whatever that is. You just have to carry on and do it in the way that you have to do it, so that you actually cross the chasm during these more difficult times. So as you mentioned, like obviously things are going to be more difficult. No one is happy in buying anything at this moment in time.
Yeah.
If they buy it, it's because they actually need it. And so for us in particular, it's a constant iteration around how to drive urgency for the need of our solution. So always being 100% clear with your messaging to a point in which like your position is crisp and super slick and super understandable and absorbable, that you can actually just deliver it in one sentence that actually lands straight away, so they know the problem that you're solving, how you're going to solve it, and ultimately what is the impact of this for them in terms of ROI. Because if there is no bang for the buck, they will not go for it at this point in time. So this for us has been the main thing. Obviously, you are always trying to understand how you can actually convey this in a way that is compelling, but you actually need to also bring in the credibility piece. So building case studies, building success stories is fundamental. Being able to say, for example, we have just done this for XYZ company delivering XYZ ROI. Can I share more information? Mind if I share more information on how we would be able to do this for XYZ company? Like this is, at the end of the day, how I've been able to actually at least give people, give myself the chance to even get my foot through the door with these people, if you know what I mean. When they don't even know who I am, they don't even have an idea who's Ujji at the end of the day, because we're not yet a workplace brand. We're not Slack, if you know what I mean. Like we will be one day, hopefully, in which everyone knows what your brand stands for. But before you actually need to explain, you need to communicate, and that has to land in a way that ultimately is super clear.
Where do you currently have more success with? Like, do you have a specific ICP where you see getting traction more easily than others?
Yeah, so I think this is something that is very particular of each and every business, right? It really depends on your solution. It depends on your business model. In our case, our sweet spot is scale-ups and SMEs. So essentially, businesses that are in a very much of a fast-paced work environment to a point in which they don't have the budgets, they don't have the resources, they don't have the time to actually think about training their teams. Usually Coca-Colas of the world out there, they have millions and millions to spend in building an L&D team that will spend time and effort in crafting a course or a training experience on an LMS, for example. In our case, we focus on companies between 50 to 250, usually that actually can't afford basically stopping to think about how they're going to be training their people on their very specific processes. So that's where AI basically fills in a gap, essentially. So this is where we usually see this landing more effectively. But we work with companies as small as 5 employees all the way up to 500 today. So essentially, even though we have a very specific ICP, usually you do see some things falling out of it. And that doesn't mean you wouldn't cater to these businesses as well. Oh, I like your mug, by the way. Nice one.
If anyone's watching, I have a Flawless mug. Yeah. Sorry if anyone's listening.
Product replacement.
Let me shift gears a little bit to a little bit more the juicy sides of. Yeah, I mean, of course, we're trying to crack things, but at the same time, it's not so easy. How is life going in general for you both? And I'm gonna cap this section to like a few questions back to back, and I'm gonna ask for like short answers. Okay, so here we go. How is life going these days, apart from business, Serkan? How are you? Are you loving being a founder and being in this hectic situation of trying to make things, or what's going on?
Sometimes yes, sometimes it is challenging. But I think the important thing to say that when you are a founder, you cannot separate being a founder from your life. There's no such thing like business life and private life. It's always part of your life. It's always on your mind. So you just need to accept that, which makes life a little bit easier, to be honest, because otherwise you try to draw those lines, which never stays there. So. Yeah. So I am working hard.
You go into the peaks and lows mode sometime, or is it quite stable?
I can't say that it's stable. Even during the day, your mood changes. Like something happens, you get so excited, and then another thing happens, you feel so depressed. In the morning, you are thinking it's going to be amazing. We are just going to conquer the world. In the afternoon, you are saying, okay, this is just, why did we, like, this is not going to work. And then the next day, you wake up again, so excited. This is going to be amazing. This is just how it is.
Yeah, it's for
I think we all need therapy.
we all need therapy, and I think like you think that's the case for like early stage startups like us, but I speak to like CROs or established businesses like like post IPO and all that, and it's kind of the same for everybody. Everyone's going through a bit of a cycle in their even during the day, but we try to keep sane. And you have something to add?
Yes, but when you're a founder, it's a little bit of a different story, because depending, how you build business, because there are people who run like a couple of different businesses and they run them for 2 years, then sell it and create another one. This is a different type of foundership. Yeah. But in our case, it's more of a kind of an extension of us. It is a reflection of our journey, and it is, in my case, native really reflects me and the way I build my relationships. I didn't know that while creating it, and only after having the interviews and getting the feedback, I noticed that. And also, for me, it is more about creating a legacy that can actually outlive me. Yeah. That's all about it. That's the ultimate goal. That's why it's very personal. So the ups and downs are much more dramatic than probably someone who is working for a startup. It is hard, anyways.
I will ask the question in a different way to Rafa and say, like, what are you doing to keep yourself sane these days, Rafa, in the middle of being a founder, being a, very new dad?
Yeah. So I think this year has been a very sort of like unusual one, because I've become a father, and so I have a 5-month-old baby daughter now. Essentially, it does really change it all, and at the end of the day, it can sound like a cliche, but it really does. And the way I've been just going about in juggling founder life and family life has just been really about trying to always fit in anything that goes beyond work to a point in which it injects life into my life, if that is even a thing, if that makes any sense even. So for example, sometimes you can spend 12 to 14 hours straight sitting in your office and staring at your laptop. Get up, go to your daughter's room and have a play with her for like 10-15 minutes. Like, that is actually adding so much value to my days. Another thing that I usually do is just practice my favorite sport at the end of the day. Like, even if it's 4 p.m. or 5 p.m., it's not yet the end of the day. I'll try to make sure that I fit that in, because it may be that later in the day it's going to be raining, but it's not raining right now. So maybe I can now go and play some tennis and hit some balls, and that will like really get me to go back to work with a fresh mind and a fresh pair of eyes that will potentially just help me
I
get
think
things out of the
living in
way
the
in a
UK,
way in which I wouldn't potentially.
I think living in the UK, we all have that urge. The moment the weather is a little bit okay, we all want to just go outside because we don't know when it will be fine again. That's excellent. Now, guys,
That's
this has been a great chat, but like as any good therapist, I'm gonna have to cut us on time. So I'm gonna shift to the final section of the chat, which is I will ask you each one question to which I wanna get an answer in under 1 minute, okay? And it's gonna be quite a practical one. So you can take a moment to think about it. We can edit that out, but the answer has to be in 1 minute. All right. So I think I'm gonna go with Serkan first because I really like how he explains the relationship between relationship building, sales development, and closing. So my question to you, Serkan, is what are your top tips as a founder who's leading the sales machine for developing sales? Okay.
So my first thing is definitely become relationship focused rather than closing the deal. That's very important. And start your relationships in an authentic place. That's going to be my second tip. Authenticity is very important, and especially today in 2 different channels, email, LinkedIn, wherever you are, we are inundated with lots of sales pitches. And in many cases, we ignore those messages. It is very difficult to actually get the attention of people. So, but when you don't pitch anything at the beginning of that relationship, or you simply focus on building that relationship, which shows that actually you're also focusing on your vision, it is definitely going to make it easier for you alongside authenticity. And especially for the early stage founders, I recommend them to do in an organic and manual way rather than automated way, because first you really need to understand how you build those relationships, how they talk, what language they use, what questions they ask, what are the challenges, and also understand how that cycle and the funnel works actually before automating or, doing any mass messaging or anything like that. So authenticity, organic, and relationship focus, those are the 3 things that I would definitely recommend.
Excellent. I'm just going to do a little shout out there. The second point about, not pitching and sharing something, being generous in advance. There is a guy that I really like as a bit of an influencer in the sales world, More Asulin. And I maybe we'll share on this podcast, but the way he approaches sales and relationship building is something that I share with my SDR team as well. It's very empathetic. Like, you are a founder. Generally, people in your stage are going through these things. Does what I say resonate with you? And then warm you up to the conversation, and afterwards, like, hit you with something which is very relevant. For example, are you trying to improve this or that KPI? Here's an example of it. So he's really a pro on that. I really like what he shares on that topic. So I'll do a little, a nod to him. Excellent. Thanks, Serkan. And Rafa, I have something on the other end of the spectrum for you, which is going to be about closing deals. So, because you are already at the stage where I already know the confidential information about your business, that I know you are closing deals with like some really interesting businesses, I would say, what are your top 3 things about closing a deal? It can be from the start to the end, or maybe it can be a specific part of it, but you as Rafael, closing deals, building a now sales team to do what you are doing, what are your top tips to somebody who has to scale your success?
That's a very interesting one, and I have to say that I didn't always know this, especially because we just went to market a year ago, right? So been doing founder-led sales for just a bit over a year now. But essentially, my first one has a lot to do with what Serkan just mentioned, which is relationship building. So I have at least 5 different customers who I started building a relationship even before Ujji was out in the market. I actually just took them on a journey to understand like our value proposition, the problem that we could be solving for them. And throughout this journey in which I took them, several times I got pissed off because I was like, mate, why can't you just close the deal, potentially jump in right now? And it just doesn't work like that. So you have to be patient. You have to be patient and persistent. So that is my second point. It's not going to be the way you want it to be, but if you actually build that relationship, you follow up in a way that adds value. So not just following up in a way that feeds your requirements, your necessities, but actually adds value to the decision maker. Being in actually showing how your platform has evolved to meet a specific need that you couldn't deliver against first, or whatever that is. That is essentially the second thing. And the third thing really has to be about following processes and just nailing your messaging, essentially. So always continue to iterate that so that you can continue to be more laser focused and sharp with your deliverables when it comes to your outreach.
Excellent. Thank you for those.
I think that was over a minute, right? Apologies for that.
I agree with all of those, but I think I have to learn as a podcast host now, a new one, how to cut people off at 1 minute, which is something that I'm always being grilled. My marketing team is always like, can you make sure that people keep it under a minute?
And I totally forgot that there was the 1 minute limit. I'm so sorry about that.
We'll get there one day. Okay, guys, This has been an amazing chat. Thank you very much for being my fellow hustlers and for joining me today on Sales Therapy. I think a lot of people will enjoy this conversation. And that's a wrap on this episode of Sales Therapy. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to us on your favorite channels, on your favorite podcast platforms. And if people want to find out more about yourselves, should they just go on LinkedIn? What should they do, guys?
Yes, I am all over LinkedIn. They can find me quite easily.
And Rafael as well.
Same here. I think we're always nudging against each other's posts, always commenting on each other. So you're very likely to find us just by seeing this session being posted on LinkedIn too.
All right. Excellent. I'm your host, Alper Yurder. Thank you for listening to Sales Therapy. Bye.